to the regular meeting of the San Rafael Police Advisory and Accountability Committee, our meeting on Wednesday, July 17th. Welcome all. I'll ask Lieutenant Eberly to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Kamina. Member DeViti? Present. Member Ruiz? Member Alvarez?
Present.
Chair Kamina?
Present.
Member Locks? Member Valdez?
Present.
Vice Chair Tokalahi?
Present.
Thank you.
And just to note, Member Alm and Member Nguyen are absent.
Okay, and thank you very much. Would you like to, Lieutenant Eberly, address the interpretation and public comment for the meeting?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we begin, we'd like to announce that tonight's meeting will include Spanish language simultaneous and consecutive interpretation provided by qualified interpreters on the Spanish channel. If watching on Zoom, you can join the Spanish channel by clicking on the interpretation icon in the Zoom toolbar. It looks like a globe. If you are attending in person and don't have access to the Zoom meeting from your mobile device, please come see me and I will get you set up with a device so you can listen to the meeting in Spanish. As a reminder, we ask that everyone participating tonight speak slowly to allow our interpreter to effectively express your comments.
Antes de comenzar, nos gustaría anunciar que la reunión de esta noche incluirá interpretación simultánea y consecutiva en español, proporcionada por intérpretes calificados sobre el canal de español. Si ven en Zoom, pueden unirse al canal de español haciendo clic sobre el icono de interpretación que aparece sobre la barra de funciones de Zoom como un globo terráqueo. Si asiste en persona y no tiene acceso a la reunión de Zoom desde su dispositivo móvil, ven a verme y le configuraré un dispositivo para que pueda escuchar la reunión en español. Como recordatorio, pedimos que todos los participantes de esta noche hablen lentamente para permitir que nuestros intérpretes expresen sus comentarios de manera efectiva.
This meeting tonight is being recorded and members of the public watch online or listen by phone by calling 669-444-9171 using the meeting ID 898-5264-7245#. There'll be an opportunity for public comment for those participating in person. Each person will have 2 minutes to provide their comments. We invite each of you to introduce yourselves by name before presenting your comments. We are offering closed captioning for this evening's meeting on Zoom. Select the live transcript button on Zoom to enable this feature.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to review and consider the minutes from the meeting of May 22nd. Does anyone on the committee have any questions? I'm just going to go from the left to the right. Member Ruiz, do you have any questions about, do you have any questions about the
Any.
minutes? No.
No.
Member Logs,
Yes.
do you have any questions or
Yes.
comments? Please, thank you.
Comments, Yes.
Thank you.
Wait, let me just grab the minutes.
Sure.
Okay. Did you- Oh, it doesn't come forward. Can you hear me? Is it?
Yep.
Okay. My questions about the minutes is that under the committee approved the following work plan, that the minutes are reflecting a different format than what was presented in our previous 4 months. And it also does not set in, it doesn't set the time that the topics would be discussed as it had been done in the past, nor the priorities. So that is my concern about how it was presented.
I'm sorry, could you maybe just point one out so that I can better understand? I have the minutes. I'm
Okay.
just not clear on what
All
you're
right,
concerned
we're
with.
gonna make it
Not
clear.
trying to be. Thank you.
In previous, we've had a format that showed the month and the topic.
Oh, I see.
And the priority is listed.
I understand.
In these minutes, it is not listed that way.
Mhm.
And that is my objection. Although I think we did have a discussion about that possibly the use of force would take some time to develop to be able to do that. But we do not have a listing of what months the topics will be discussed.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I'm sorry I didn't understand initially.
Yes.
Does Member Davidi, do you have any questions or
No.
comments? Vice Chair Tokolai, any questions or comments about the minutes from the last meeting?
No, I wasn't here, so, yeah.
Okay. Member Alvarez, do you have any comments?
No.
Member Valdez?
No.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public regarding the minutes? Seeing none, we'll close public comment on the minutes. I am going to request a motion and a second for an approval of the minutes. With Lieutenant Eberly, well, first we need a motion and then we can call the roll. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes with the consideration of the comments that I just presented. I'd like to see it listed month and topic as best we're able to do, if that's possible. That would be the amendment, my
Sure.
amendment to the minutes.
Yes, we can do that. And we will just move, I know that use of force was a priority. We'll just switch use of force and domestic violence and put that in the minutes of the final version.
Right, my understanding is that the order was changed because the person who was going to speak to use of force was unavailable, and so that's why it got switched, but that's just my understanding, because I asked. So
Well, that wasn't conveyed to the committee.
I thought it was.
I don't.
Yes, that is
Sorry.
correct. And I did plan on addressing that tonight, but
Sorry.
when we agreed upon the work plan, I didn't know the schedule of the presenters. So when I found out, I switched it.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is that we approve the minutes with consideration toward the comments that Member Locks made. Is there a second? A second to the motion? No?
I'll second that,
Okay.
even though I wasn't.
All those in favor? Oh, no, you have to, excuse me, call the roll. I'm sorry. Please do, Lieutenant Eberly.
I don't have to.
Member Davidi,
Yes.
Member Ruiz.
See?
Sorry.
Mhm.
Member Alvarez,
Yes.
Chair Kamina,
Yes,
Vice Chair Tokolahi,
Yes.
and Member Locks.
Yes.
thank you. Now is the time for, so the motion is passed and the minutes are approved.
As amended.
As amended, thank you. Now is the time for open time for public expression. So if you are interested in saying something to us, please come forward. And if there's more than one person, if you would kind of line up, so it would save time, that would be great. Oh, I think she's times it. I figured that out. Thank you so much.
Carolina, and thank you for your service. This is an important new beginning for San Rafael. I want to simply reiterate things that have been said before, but in particular, I want to make sure that all of you read the email that we sent on Heidi mentioned who was unable to come tonight, and I fully support many of the questions which she raises.
Mr. Bingham, I'm sorry. Is the microphone on? 1 second, I'm sorry.
Oh, better? Yeah.
Yes, sorry about that.
I assume you heard me, but maybe could they not hear online?
Correct.
Oh, I'll begin again.
Sure.
I'm Stephen Bingham, live in Terra Linda, and was part of the group that helped work with the police department to develop this advisory committee, and I congratulate you all. and thank you for your service. This takes a lot of time. I want to particularly draw attention this evening to the email that was submitted by Heidi Mention, and I'm assuming it was posted somewhere online so that other people can see it. It was. And I encourage you to read it very carefully and ask some of the questions which she puts in there. This is indeed, from the point of view of most of us who worked hard to work with the city to develop this advisory committee, it is about police culture. And I proudly am wearing my T-shirt for, we called him in the beginning Mateo, but this is Julio Lopez. And we all know the incident, but what continues to come back to me is something people don't focus on, that there were 2 or 3 officers there who we'd never talk about, who just stood around. And police culture, part of it is you protect your own. And the courage of police officers to speak out when there's malfeasance on the part of fellow officers is critical to a good police department. And sadly, we see all over the country that police departments aren't getting it. And we have example after example. Fortunately, San Rafael is not as bad as many, but that focus on police culture and how it gets built into training. One final thing I wanted to say, I guess I only have, 2 minutes, but I noticed in her email, all right, just
If
one
you could
last
wrap
thing.
up.
I noticed in her email that she says that San Rafael is restricted in its training to the post trainings. Now, maybe I misunderstood that, but I think legally that's wrong, and hope that San Rafael can supplement post trainings with their own trainings. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bingham, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that wants to speak to a matter that's not on the agenda tonight?
I apologize. I don't know why there's that music playing when the 2 minutes is up. But that's when the 2 minutes
Thank you
is
for
up.
letting me
Try
know.
it.
It's better than a budget.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's good to see you. It's been a while. I think it's just my question is that directed to you and probably to you too. If the culture has changed or it's still the same with the Latino community. Because we're here today. We have met many times, but has the culture changed against the Latinos for being following up because of a light, or because it's just for being Latino, they follow us? So many things I can list that. One of the things is that, has it changed or is it still the same? That's one of my questions. Maybe you asked that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public care to comment on something that's not on the agenda? Seeing no other persons interested, we'll close public comment on the non-agenda items. So the next item on our agenda is to provide feedback on the San Rafael Police Department's mental health and alternative response. The recommendation is to provide feedback, and is there a staff report to present?
Yes, thank you, Chair Kamina. I just want to remind those of you that were there and Mr. Tokolahu, who was not, that there was a presentation last month on the specialized assistance for everyone, which was a direct result of the 2020 George Floyd incident and alternate policing. It was presented to you, I think, and it has been a huge success, augmenting our police department. And now is the opportunity for you to make any comments that will be solidified and recorded in the annual report that we'll send to the city council in January.
Okay, thank you. So are there any questions from the committee? We'll start with Member Valdez. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Member Alvarez?
No.
Okay. Mr. Takalai? No?
No.
Okay. Member Davidi?
No.
Member Locks?
Yes, I have a comment.
Please.
I had the opportunity of seeing the safe van in different areas of San Rafael. I think mostly, I think I saw it once on the freeway, getting ready to take Central exit. I think once I saw it maybe downtown somewhere. But I want to comment that I did see them in Terra Linda. And I appreciate that I am seeing the van in different areas of San Rafael. And so I went up to the members in the van and spoke to them and thanked them for their service and to let them know that I appreciate that they are in all areas of San Rafael and responding. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you. Member Weiss? Any
No,
comments? No?
any
My
personal.
comment is that I was very impressed with the presentation and what these folks do. It's not easy work. I too have seen them around San Rafael. I actually saw them down the street from my house on the way here tonight. One thing is that this committee has talked about doing ride-alongs with the police. And I did ask Lieutenant Eberly if we could do ride-alongs with the SAFE team because I thought it would be very interesting. And unfortunately, the answer was no, but it makes sense. So those are my comments. I think that covers the committee. Is there any public comment from the public about this topic? That is the presentation from the SAFE team last month. Seeing no comment, we'll close time for public comment. And then since there were no questions from the community, I don't think the staff has to respond, but if you have any response to any of the members, that, fine, okay. So then we will,
I have a question, sorry.
absolutely.
I have a question. That you mentioned the ride along with the safe team. Would it be possible for us or one of us to do ride along with the police officer, especially in some of the neighborhoods, just to get a better feel of, how things are done? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. It's top of my list,
Okay.
is to start scheduling the ride-alongs. We've been, as you are all aware, we have been very, very short-staffed. Fortunately, we're starting to see an uptick and getting a lot of new applicants and recruits. What that means is there are a lot of occupied cars already in the passenger seat and driver's seat with new recruits in training, but as we're starting to see the light, and as soon as that thins out and there's room, we'll start scheduling ride-alongs. We'll do that before fall. We'll start scheduling them.
Okay, yeah, please keep me posted because I'm interested.
Oh, absolutely.
That's great. Thank you very much. Are there any comments and recommendations from the committee regarding the topic?
No.
Yes, no? Any more?
No.
Member Locks? No? Mr. Davidi?
No.
Member Tokolai?
This is about safety.
Yes,
Yeah,
about
right.
it.
I mean, like, even though I wasn't here, but I read the minutes, there's some recommendations, like more funding allocated for them,
Absolutely.
I work with them, I know them, I saw what they do on the street. It's like another version of an ambulance.
Yes.
You see the truck driving around. I know it's a pilot here in San Rafael. I wanted to see more of them. They're doing great work. They're on the ground. They're a little different from police officers. They're different from folks who work, on the ambulance and stuff. These are, like, to me, the way I look at them, like, they're outreach workers, they're mental health workers. So they're on the street working with folks on the street. They speak in that level. And the folks on the street, they respond really well to their work. you know, and I really like the work that they do, and I want to see more of that because it works, you know. I want to see more funding allocated for them, maybe another van, another truck, you know, another team. I don't know if they expanded to have two teams or just the one. I know they started with just one team, and then they take shift, I think.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. And I think one of the issues was that they weren't 24 hours a day and there was hope that they could become 24 hours.
Yeah, that's correct. So to piggyback off your question, we are looking for more funding right now. We'll definitely make that recommendation to the council. Are looking at staffing on where would be best allocated that second team.
Great. I see no other questions or comments from the committee. So we will move along to the next topic, right? As Lieutenant Eberly said, the originally scheduled item for tonight was use of force, but that person wasn't available. So the item of domestic violence response in San Rafael was moved to tonight. So the Detective Vega, Lorena Vega, is going to present a report to us. So nice to meet you in person, other than on Zoom. Please proceed. Thank you.
There we go. Let me share my screen here. That'll work. Hi, everyone. I'm Lorena. I'm a detective here at San Rafael PD. My caseload as a detective is mostly sexual assault investigation and child abuse investigation, but today we're going to talk a little bit about domestic violence. There we go. Okay. So this is just a very, very summarized version of our longer policy on domestic violence. So here at the San Rafael Police Department, we take action in combating against domestic violence. We take a very victim-centered approach when we are investigating these cases, and we take action against the perpetrator that committed this crime. Now, what I mean by a victim-centered approach is that we treat the victim with respect, we listen to the victim without judgment, and we try to provide them with the tools necessary in order to later protect themselves against their offender in the future. Now, one way in which we combat against domestic violence is it's not only San Rafael policy, it's actually California law that if we develop probable cause that a domestic violence incident had occurred, that we shall arrest the offender involved. And we'll get a little more into that. All right, so let's go over a few laws that are pertaining to domestic violence. So the first law we're going to look at is Penal Code 273.5. And a summarized version of 273.5 reads, any person who willfully inflicts corporal injury resulting in a traumatic condition upon a victim. Now, when we're talking about a victim, we're talking about the offender's spouse, their cohabitant, a fiance, or just someone that they're in a previous dating relationship with, okay? So a victim can't be a roommate or say a brother or a sister. It has to be someone they're in a previous dating relationship with. Now, the term traumatic condition, that's essentially defined as any sort of injury upon the victim, a visible injury, whether that's minor or that's more severe. That also includes strangulation and suffocation. So say the offender puts their hand on the victim's neck and it restricts normal breathing or normal circulation in the victim, normal blood circulation, that counts under this penal code as traumatic condition. So even though, say, the victim doesn't have any marks on their neck, if they still weren't able to breathe or say they passed out, that counts under traumatic condition. So Penal Code 273.5 is classified as a felony. Penal Code 243E1, essentially the same elements as the first penal code, except this is battery against spouse or cohabitant. So this is say a push or a slap that didn't involve any kind of visible injury. Penal Code 243E1 is classified as a misdemeanor. Penal Code 273.6, that's a violation of a protective order that was put in place because of a domestic violence incident. So say there's a protective order in place because of a previous domestic violence incident, and the offender violates the order by, for example, going to the victim's house or going to the victim's workplace. That would be a violation of this penal code. So just as I've mentioned, all these penal codes for police are a shall arrest. So we shall arrest the offender and take them into custody.
Is
Okay.
73.6 also a misdemeanor?
Misdemeanor.
Thank you.
All right. Now, investigative steps for police officers. Now, every scene is different. Every, call for service is different, but this is just kind of an overview of what an officer would do when they respond to one of these types of call for service. So we respond to these calls for service as though it is any other violent offense that has occurred. Domestic violence are a violent crime, so we respond accordingly. So these types of call for service are met with urgency and with high priority. We also, as an officer, you have to understand that we don't know what's always behind a closed door. These types of call for service, their emotions are heightened, maybe they're even intoxicated. So that's why maybe 2, 3, sometimes 4 officers will respond to one call for service at a time. All right, so let's say a neighbor at an apartment complex hears their next door neighbors fighting. They're arguing, they hear things being thrown around, they hear their neighbors calling for help. And so they call 911. Well, again, we're going to respond with urgency and high priority. Once officers arrive, they're going to locate the parties involved and provide any kind of medical aid that's obviously needed. And they're also going to ask if any medical aid is needed. Officers are also going to render the scene safe, which means they're going to make sure nobody has any kind of weapons, nobody's hiding in closets. Everyone is safe, not only for their own safety, but also for the officer's safety. Officers are also going to separate the parties involved, separate the victim, perpetrator, and witnesses. Normally, it's pretty evident who's involved and who's a potential victim or a potential perpetrator, because they'll either self-identify as such, or people will point out, it was this person, it was that person. We also want to separate, especially the victim and the perpetrator. We don't want them in earshot or even eye shot of each other. And that's just so that they don't keep arguing. That's so the perpetrator doesn't continue to intimidate the victim through maybe looks or, hand gestures or anything like that. So we want especially the victim away from the perpetrator. After that, officers will interview the victim and the witnesses and perpetrator involved. And this is also why 3 or 4 officers will be there at once, because separate interviews are occurring simultaneously. While the officer is interviewing the people involved, they're going to document their names, their ages, their demeanor as well. Are they intoxicated? Are they crying? Are they balling their fists in anger? Those are all things the officer is going to note while they're conducting their interviews. The officer is also going to check for restraining orders. Are these people that are here even allowed to be in the same room with each other? We're going to make sure there's no restraining orders in place, or if they are, we're going to address them accordingly. The officer is also going to proactively ask the victim whether they were strangulated or suffocated in the incident. A lot of the times the victim, their emotions are so heightened that they forget certain details about what happened, or they just might maybe even think that it's not important, so they won't mention it while they're talking about what occurred. So that's why the officer will proactively ask, were they strangulated or were they suffocated? We ask this because these types of injuries can be really, really dangerous. They might not show up right away, the bruises, but they could have some sort of internal damage, the victim. So an officer will ask about that. The officer will also ask, if they might have an inkling that a sexual assault took place. The officer might also ask the victim, were they sexually assaulted that night? Once interviews have been conducted, the officer is then going to determine what's called a dominant aggressor. Now, sometimes it's clear who was the main perpetrator in the incident, through injuries or statements. Sometimes it's clear, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes both the victim and the perpetrator will fight against each other, and they'll both have injuries. So through statements, witness statements, through location of injuries, like a defensive injury, which is, a victim going like this and they have marks on their forearms versus someone who has marks on their knuckles, as though hitting somebody. Those are all things that an officer will use to determine who a dominant aggressor is. Now, once they do determine a dominant aggressor and the officer believes that they have probable cause to arrest the aggressor, then they will effect that arrest and take the perpetrator into custody. They'll then take them away from the scene and take them off to jail. Officer will also photograph the scene, photograph any injuries on both the victim and the perpetrator, and just make sure the whole area is documented. All right, follow-up step is when we really get centered in on the victim. Once the perpetrator is away from the scene, the officer will, go one-on-one with the victim, sit down with the victim, and offer a few things. So one of the things that we offer are what's called an emergency protective order, or an EPO. So an emergency protective order is a restraining order that's granted on an
Excuse me just one moment. I think we have an issue with translation.
Yeah, no, in
Sorry.
Spanish.
Did the Spanish stop?
Yeah, just
Okay.
have 10 seconds. So.
Feel free to let us know when that
This
happens.
will be a good time to toggle the interpreters, so I'll switch Angelica and Pablo right now.
Thank you.
Sí.
Okay,
Yep.
we can continue. Sorry about that.
Okay,
Can you let us know if you can't hear?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you
perfect.
so much.
Thank you. Please continue.
okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry.
No, okay, so an emergency protective order. So this is a restraining order that's granted on essentially emergency basis. So this is saying that the victim doesn't have time to go to the courthouse, go file for a restraining order. They need an emergency order right now at 3 a.m. when officers are there. So an EPO is only granted by a judge, so we can only request from a judge that they grant this order. We usually ask the victim if they want this EPO, but if the circumstances are so severe and say, the injuries are so severe and the perpetrator made such severe threats that even if the victim says that they don't want an EPO, officers can still request an EPO on the victim's behalf. And this just gives the victim time to actually go to the courthouse, the next morning or Monday morning and file for a more permanent restraining order. We'll also offer several different resources. So we have a couple of pamphlets that are issued by the department that we can give the victim. And it has information such as Victims Compensation Board. It also has several different phone numbers for resources or shelters. One of those numbers is for our local advocacy group called Center for Domestic Peace. And there's a representative here on Zoom. And I'll let her talk more about resources that she can offer here in a little bit. Further follow-up, if the victim's injuries are so severe, such as they had life-threatening injuries or they had to be hospitalized, the case will likely be forwarded to our investigations unit, my division, and the detective will follow up with the victim, for further follow-up. Okay, let's get into some statistics regarding domestic violence related cases that San Rafael PD took. So these statistics right here are from 2023, and I'll explain each of them a little bit. So total domestic violence related cases, 212. Now, this number isn't 212 arrests. So included in this 212 are also incidents where, let's say we respond to a call for domestic violence. There was domestic violence that took place. There is a victim. However, the suspect has fled the scene. They left the area. Officers can't find them. After several days of follow-up, they're in the wind. Well, that case will still be forwarded to our district attorney's office for them to file against the offender, hopefully. So that number of cases is included in that 212. What's also included is what's called domestic violence documentations. And that's, say, officers respond to what we believe to have been a domestic violence incident. We get there and the parties involved say, no, it was just all verbal. We didn't fight each other physically. We were just yelling really loud. Well, an officer is still going to take a documentation report, just in case if something in the future happens with those parties, that'll all be documented. So those types of incidents are also in that 212. So total cases where a dangerous weapon was used, 67. So by that, we mean essentially anything other than the offender's hands. So say a glass cup was thrown at the victim, or they were threatened with a knife. Those types of cases are going to be involved in that 67. And then total cases involving strangulation or suffocation, 9. Now, these numbers are pretty much our average numbers. Right now in 2024, we're a little more than halfway through the year, and we're at 111 cases for, domestic violence related cases. In 2022, it was 196 cases. So we toggle around the number 200. So these are pretty average for us. Okay, law enforcement training. So law enforcement's a very dynamic field. Laws are constantly changing. Case law is constantly being updated. So that means officers also need to be consistently updated and up our training on it. So domestic violence is a mandated topic during the police academy, and it's also a mandated topic for us to learn while we're in field training with our assigned departments. Officers are required to receive a legal update every 2 years. And here at San Rafael PD, this is normally taught and led by a representative from our district attorney's office. Officers train regularly through our shift briefings. Every morning at the start of our shift, we go through a briefing. We train on different topics during the briefing, and sometimes it's domestic violence. A lot of times we also debrief after calls for service. Say we respond, during our shift to a domestic violence call for service. Afterwards, officers will usually get together and debrief what happened. We also work collaboratively with Center for Domestic Peace. That way we can ensure the most favorable outcome for our victim. Representatives from Center for Domestic Peace have come to our briefings before just to update us on, resources they offer and how we can better serve our victim. And this brings me to, so this is called our domestic violence pocket card. So I know it's really tiny. I have one here if you guys want to see it more up close. But this is what it looks like. So this was created by our friends at Center for Domestic Peace. And as you saw, there's a lot of investigative steps that an officer needs to take during these types of call for service. So this was created so that officers don't forget, any of the steps. And it also has, questions that we could ask, like risk assessment questions, such as, we can ask the victim, does the perpetrator own or have access to firearms? Do you think the perpetrator might try and harm you further? It also has the process of obtaining EPOs, how to call the domestic violence emergency hotline, and so forth. So these are really nice because officers can fold it, really tiny, put it in their pocket, and whenever they respond to a call for service, they can take it out and look at it again.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt you.
That's
Do you
okay.
feel comfortable sharing that document so we can
Fine.
see it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll also make that public and post that with minutes for next month.
So they can fold in their pocket, take it out when they're ready to use it, and they can follow that guideline. So that's kind of the end of my presentation. And whenever Luz is ready, I'll let her take it over from here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lorena. If you could stop sharing.
Oh.
Well, Lorena, that was a wonderful presentation. Hi, everyone. My name is Luz Alvarado, and I do have to apologize for not being present with you. Unfortunately, I had a training that I needed to attend to, but I'm glad that Scott was able to make the appropriate accommodation so that I can be with you all via Zoom. I just wanted to make sure that all of you hear me. Can you please let me know if you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So again, I have been at Center for Domestic Peace for, this is going to be my 20th year. So I have been around, and through all of my time, I have been working very closely, not only with San Rafael PD, but also with all of the local law enforcement jurisdictions throughout Marin County. Part of the services that we provide at Center for Domestic Peace is we start with our hotline. It's our confidential, it's our 24/7 English and Spanish hotline, where victims are connected by law enforcement. Some of them call on themselves. Other community partners connect victims to our hotline. And our hotline provides them with resources, safety planning, and they do what it's called a screening in case that they need to come into our shelter. If those that are connected to our hotline from law enforcement, what the hotline does with them following that incident of domestic violence that Lorena just explained, the hotline advocate provides that. In addition to that, they provide an appointment with the victim, so then they can meet with one of our legal systems advocates. And I will explain a little bit more about what those advocates will do and help the victim with. If the victim goes to shelter, at the shelter, we provide them with everything that you can imagine, from the bare necessities as to clothing, toothbrush, formula for their kids, a place for them to stay safe and their children. We provide advocacy. We connect them with other resources, and we work with them throughout their time that they are staying in our shelter. Our shelter is here in Marin County, and it's in a confidential location. Then we have our Community and Youth Division program. In that one, we house the In This Together program, and that is our therapy program that it's also in English and in Spanish for the victim parent and their children. The goal for this therapy together is so that the bond that was disrupted between the victim and the child witness is that bond, because of the abuse, so then hopefully that bond can be fixed throughout this therapy, a specialized therapy that it's In This Together. Then we have the Marina Youth Against Youth Abuse. This is a group of a program that we host with our local high schools and colleges, where young adults come and join this social club that they learn what is teen dating violence, what are the ingredients to have healthy relationships, and they also become educators out in their schools. At the same time, they form a very important part of our coordinated community response to domestic violence, where they come and give us advice as to what are the needs that the youth have in the community, specifically that is related to domestic violence. What are we doing? So they are advisors to that group. Then we have the Champion Men's Zone. And the Champion Men's Zone is to teach, it's for those that identified as boys or males and it's to teach them healthy masculinity. Then from there, we have our second step, transitional housing. For that one, we have 21 units. They are 10 in San Rafael, and we have 21 in Novato. For those, we have, it's an occupational and educational program, and it consists in individualized case management, domestic violence counseling, educational classes, and they provide them with life skills. They also they have built-in workshops, support groups, and they help them with assisting in securing long-term housing. Again, that's a program and it's only for 12 months. Then from there, we go to our battery intervention program classes. That one is a 52-week program, and it's designated for men that want to stop their violence. We also have the same classes for women when the perpetrator has been identified as a female. Unfortunately, we do not have those classes at the moment. They have been on pause, but currently we have the battery intervention program classes. And then we go to our legal systems advocacy program, and that's the program that I'm the program director for. And this is the one that we work very closely with law enforcement. So I'll tell you more in the next slides. So from that, what we do in the legal systems advocacy program, again, we guide victims through the criminal justice system. We work very closely with law enforcement, the prosecutor, family law, children and family services, used to known as CFS, and immigration. We guide victims of domestic violence through all of these sectors. There are many times that victims are, they need help and guidance and assistance with multiple sectors at the same time. The work that we do with law enforcement is there are times that victims come to us and they have not made a police report. So I'm just going to focus today on San Rafael. So when they come to us with their authorization, we call the San Rafael Police Department and either arrange for them to come and respond to the office so then they can take the report where the victim is. And the main office is in San Rafael, or they will schedule an appointment for us to go into their office, into their building, their station, and the report is taken there. I have not seen once that a victim has been not treated with dignity and respect when when we have been there. We also help, as Lorena said, we help with follow-up investigation. How do we help? And again, all of this is with authorization from the victim, and if the victim wants to participate in this. Lorena stated that there are times that victims might not develop any visible bruising during the assault, but the bruising comes off later on. The victim might also have forgotten to give them everything that happened and to tell them at times, even some incidents, they have forgotten that they were being strangled. So when the victims are working with us, again, we let them know what are the rights and what is the importance for law enforcement to have that information, so then they can send that to the prosecutors. So if the victim agrees, so then we schedule a follow-up investigation meeting. This also includes taking follow-up photographs as well for different injuries. We help them to also do police reports. Lorena talked a little bit about the DBIRT line, that is the Domestic Violence Response Team. This is a confidential line that it's only for law enforcement. law enforcement, when they connect the victim with the hotline, if the victim says no, then they call the divert line, and with authorization of the victim, they give us the information of the incident. So then they let them know that an advocate will be calling them, and we call them pretty much within 24 hours. And that confidential line is housed in my department. Then there are many times that law enforcement helped us to identify if the domestic violence restraining order that comes from family courts is entering into the CLED system. There are many times that, again, there are human errors and that order might not be entering into its CLEDs, that is the law enforcement communication system. And if there's a violation of the restraining order, officers might not be able to see it. And that is especially important because if the victim relocates out of Marin County or out of San Rafael, and if they go to another place and if the order is violated, we need to make sure that officers are able to see that restraining order into their own CLEDs, into their CLED system. Many times, and especially San Rafael, they have also helped us to serve temporary restraining orders that we assist the victims with, and also domestic violence restraining orders after hearing when the abuser in this time, they have not been served. Through all of that, that's something that we call systems advocacy, is when we called law enforcement and said, hey, we have a victim, she's telling us this, can't you follow up with is there any way that you can follow up on the investigation? And they immediately said, absolutely, let me schedule an appointment. Or you know what, the officer that responded to that initial call is working right now, let me have the officer follow up with the victim. And Lorena just explained the Marine Law Enforcement Pocket Card that we work collaboratively to create that with all law enforcement and also with the district attorney. So that card is not only made by us, we suggested, and it's actually mainly put together by the domestic violence DV liaisons, that it's a representative from each law enforcement jurisdiction in the county, and also it's revised by the district attorney, and it's just to help the officers when they are responding to domestic violence and ensuring to them that they can follow all of the steps that they need to do. That pocket card has, if I'm not mistaken, 98 steps that officers need to follow. And those 98 steps were extracted from the law enforcement protocol that they have to follow. And the protocol is this big. So just imagine how helpful that card is for officers. And then we also have a domestic violence DV liaison from San Rafael that we called, and that individual is assigned to work directly with us to talk about when things are going well, when things are not going well, and when we need assistance from either end. There are times that they called and they said, hey, Luz, we have a victim that we need your help. She's coming to make a police report, and we can benefit from having an advocate do the accompaniment while they are giving the report. So we provide with that advocate as well. And from there, in my department, again, this is following the police report. What we do is that we guide victims, and we do accompaniment as well. We guide victims on the criminal case, and we explain what the CPO, that it stands for Criminal Protective Order. We let them know also, I didn't include it here, but for the EPO, that again, it stands for Emergency Protective Order. What we do is that we also focus on explaining them what are the personal conduct orders and what to do if those orders are being violated. And again, it's calling the police immediately. Then we explain to them something that is as simple as to, this is not the victim's criminal case, it's the perpetrator's criminal case. So we explain the role of the prosecutor. We explain every single court hearing and what is happening in those hearings. So then the victim can be engaged in the criminal justice system and with the prosecution of the case. One of the things that we also inform them of is the role of the defense attorney, and that they will also have investigators that they might be reaching out to the victim, and we let them know what are their mercy rights. And one of them is that they have the right to speak with with anybody that they want to, and not to speak with anybody that they don't want to, and that includes us, and that's how we put it. So then when we explain that to the victims, they are able to make an autonomous decision as to how they're going to proceed. And again, more information to the victim, it's giving them the tools that they need to continue on the prosecution. We provide court accompaniment for the preliminary hearing, accompaniment to probation. We help them to do the victim impact statement. If the case is actually, if there's a conviction, we let them know what the jury trial is, and we also let them know what is the sentencing, and also the right to obtain a pre-sentencing report from probation and also a sentencing report from probation. What we do is that we do safety planning throughout the course of the criminal case, because for any outcome of every single court hearing, the lethality might increase, and that's when the restraining orders might be violated as well. So we do safety planning throughout the course of the case, and the case might last as fast as, might be resolved in the DA's office as fast as 3 months. It could also be years. So it just depends. We also, how I say that victims, at times they have different systems criminal justice systems that they need to seek help with. And one of them is family courts. And this is when they need to go and obtain a restraining order, not only that protects them, but also that includes the children. And also that one, if they have children, it will establish what are the custody and visitation orders. So again, we do a guidance through all of the process. What is the restraining order? What are all of these names that, again, EPO, Emergency Protective Order, TRO, Temporary Restraining Order, that this one, it's the one that they have before the DVRO, and that is the Domestic Violence Restraining Order. And then we have the restraining order after hearing. So there's so many things that it's impossible for somebody to remember all of this. And we explain also that when they have a CPO that comes from the criminal case, that is a criminal protective order, which one is the one that takes precedence if that is violated. So it gets a little complex when they have custody. So, but we explain everything the best way that we can. We also connect them with attorneys. We work very closely with Family and Children's Law Center. And if for some reason they are not able to help them, we have a list of some pro bono attorneys that we have access to, and they might help us to help victims to obtain a restraining order. Then, again, similar as to the criminal case, we do safety planning between the two processes, and at times, again, you have to be on top of it and monitor not only the criminal case but the civil case, so then we can inform the victim, and we do the safety planning. And for family courts, victims can't have the right to appear via Zoom, so then we do tech advocacy. We help the victims to download Zoom, to explain them how Zoom works. We also do meetings with them via Zoom, just so then we are sure that they have good connectivity, that they have a private place. If that is not the case, they come into our office. If they are going to be appearing via Zoom, they come into our office, and then we have a computer that they can access their court hearing, and then their advocate is as well accompanying them via Zoom. If the victim is present in court, we will provide the accompaniment in person. We
Luz,
also
Luz,
do,
I'm sorry, I need to just toggle the Spanish interpreters very quickly. Sorry.
okay, let me know when I can proceed.
Thank you, Luz. You can proceed.
Thank you. And then from there, what we do is that we do advocacy with Children and Family Services. We have an advocate that it's a station and working with them 20 hours per week. And what we do with them is that they help us to connect families and that they have received child welfare referrals. And then we do follow up on cases. We do virtual and phone consultations with both either the social worker and also the victims as well. We attend children and family team meetings, but again, we prep the victim and explain what are these processes and also what is the role of Child Protective Services in their family. We help them when their children are removed.
Luz, I'm sorry. We might not have gotten the Spanish translation. No? Okay.
Okay.
Angelica, if you can hear me, you're on the Spanish channel. If you could start talking. Darlene, you can't hear her? No. One sec, I'm sorry. Angelica, can you try again?
Looks like we're good to go.
Okay, perfect. So then, let me back up a little bit just to ensure that the Spanish-speaking individuals were able to understand. We do follow-up cases where we work with the victim as well, and we provide virtual and phone consultations, not only with the social worker, but also with the victim. We attend the children and family team meetings, and how I said before, we explain all of these stages and processes to the victim, so then they can have a better understanding of the process as well. Many times or sometimes, unfortunately, the children are removed from the victim and then they have to go to juvenile dependency. We explain the juvenile dependency process, and because of the children's confidentiality laws, we cannot provide court accompaniment for that, but we help the victim before that hearing and then after. And we do the same systems advocacy with Children and Family Services. And then we do, there are many victims of domestic violence that are from foreign countries, and they are undocumented under the Immigration Violence Against Women Act that was passed in 1994. They can apply, victims of domestic violence can apply for U visa, VAWA, or T visa. And there are different requirements and criteria per each of these type of visas. What we currently have is that we have immigration clinics that those victims that qualify for any of this, they can come and they can obtain assistance, and we put them together with an attorney that can represent them for free, so then they can they can obtain assistance with their immigration relief. Lastly, I believe that Scott sent this. We made a educational video. We believe in it, that providing information out to the community is the best tool to also stop domestic violence. Many times individuals don't know that they are in an abusive relationship because they don't have visible bruises. So what we did is that we made different video recordings that they are produced in English and in Spanish, and you can listen and you can also read to them, so they have capture for that. We needed to make sure that also it was accessible for individuals with disabilities as well. And Scott sent this link to them, so I encourage you to listen to them, and not only that, but also to disseminate them with the communities that you have access to, or with your neighbors, or you listen to them. Again, one of my favorites is also, what are the tips to have a healthy and equal relationship? And that applies not only with your partner, but with your neighbor, at work. So again, they're very useful. So I highly encourage you to listen to that. That is, I will say, our gift to our community, and it's our commitment to the community. And that's it for me. And again, thank you. Gracias. Again, my name is Luz Alvarado. I'm the Legal Systems Advocacy Program Director here at Center for Domestic Peace. You have my contact information here. Scott has my contact, and I am ready if you have any questions for me.
Well, Detective Vega and Luz Alvarado, thank you so much for your presentations. They've been very helpful and very informative. Now would be the time to ask if there are any questions from the committee. We'll go the other way. We'll start with Ms. Valdez.
Question first and then comments, or?
Questions first.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Ms. Alvarez, any questions?
I didn't, I'm not sure if she said it or I didn't catch it, but where can you find those voice recordings that she?
I could answer that real quick. So we have a link of the voice recordings on our main police department website. But in your packet and online, we did provide a link for the Center for Domestic Peace, and on their website, they have that as well. So 2 places.
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Good evening. Welcome. Do you have any questions, Ms. Nguyen? Okay. Mr. Tokolai?
I do have a few questions. Numbers. I know with domestic violence, Domestic Peace, Center for Domestic Peace, the sharing of data is confidential, but can you say maybe yes or no? I just wanted to know the total numbers of reported cases the last few years, whether you see coming through your center, whether there's an increase or decrease.
Well, that's a great question. We have different numbers. If you give me a moment, I can access those numbers. But what I have seen, what I can tell you is that with all of the work that we have done closely with law enforcement, domestic violence, it's going down. And it's because of the close work collaboration that we have with all law enforcement, all of the educational work that we are providing out through the different sectors. For example, our youth, I didn't mention, but we attend different health fairs. So it's all of the education that we provide out, or coordinated community response to domestic violence and sexual assault. Many collaborators from the entire Marin County come and also it's open to the public. All of that information is given. I can say that during the pandemic, again, the numbers were very, very high, and we were seeing different types of abuse that we have not seen before. I can say that the numbers are decreasing a little bit for the request of shelter, but in my own department, we see approximately 400 participants per year. And this is an unduplicated number. I can give you the number for the hotline if you give me a moment.
Cool. Well, thank you. While you're on it, I know you guys' main focus is working with women, girls, moms and their kids. My other concern is that, what about boys and men? What about the other groups like the LGBTQ communities? Do you guys do any work with those groups?
Oh,
or
absolutely. Absolutely. I can just answer it by saying that domestic violence does not discriminate.
Right.
Domestic violence, how I said before, there are times, yes, the majority of the victims statistically has been the females. But there's also a short percentage of males that are also victims of domestic violence, and we help them exactly the same, and we provide the same services, no matter the gender, the race, and the ethnicity as well. So in the language that they speak, we provide the same services. We also are very active with the LGBTQ community. We have booklets, and that they are bilingual booklets, and they are specifically for LGBTQ. They're also for immigrants. They're also made in different languages. I wanted to say that one is Vietnamese, in English, Spanish and English, and there's a Portuguese as well in English. So we do provide services for men as well. And we have our men champion zone, the champion zone men, that we work with all of the teams and all of the men. So we do work with everybody. Some of the victims that they come into our therapy group, they are men as well. And we have we have done many court accompaniments to male victims as well.
Thank you. I also have other questions that might come back to you. You mentioned the numbers, the total cases. I didn't quite get the 2022. 2023, last year was around 212. And you also said this year so far, we're halfway through the year, so around 100 something, right? So my other question is that, since you guys are working together with Center, for Domestic Peace, does your numbers the same, sort of like, or is it separate? What, like, does it goes on their records as well?
Yeah, so I don't know Center for Domestic Peace's numbers, but I would venture to bet they're different than ours, because sometimes victims will only report to Center for Domestic Peace, and they don't want law enforcement involvement. They only want, help, shelter services, but maybe aren't quite ready to make that report to law enforcement. There's also times where we respond to a call for domestic violence. We act accordingly, arrest the perpetrator, but sometimes the victims don't want services.
Right.
And so they're never contacted by Center for Domestic Peace, and they don't want to be contacted. So our numbers are likely different.
Okay. I mean, like, the only reason why I'm asking numbers, because I'm looking at the survey that you guys
I
done.
just wanted to interject. We're talking about San Rafael numbers versus county numbers, because the center, I believe, is countywide.
Okay. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So Detective Vega, what you're saying is that the 212 was for the whole county or just for San
I'm
Rafael?
sorry,
San
that's
Rafael.
only San Rafael. Yeah,
Yes.
everything that I'm saying is pretty much. for San
Okay.
Rafael. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
And I will not be able to give you numbers specifically for San Rafael, but I will be happy to actually follow up and send those to to Scott, so then they can provide them to you.
I mean, like, I'm okay with that. I don't really need the total numbers. I just wanted to see the graph, like whether it's decrease, increase. Because I'm looking at the survey, you know, that you guys done last year, the PAC 2023 survey, or whether there's 5 questions. If you look at the results, like I think around 200 people or 300 people who did the survey, the top one is speeding, a total of 169. The second is domestic peace. These are the voice of the communities who wanted us back to focus on. If you look at the list, like, and the reason why I'm asking this, because I'm going to go back to their questions. Heidi's email, is the culture change? His questions, has the culture changed? I want to go back to these numbers, because these numbers will show to the public that, because they are the ones who are concerned, it will show them that we're actually doing something, you know? So, and this is why I'm asking numbers. Are there any follow-up surveys, you know, particular to this one? Maybe include some other questions.
I think the survey is the next topic for discussion this evening. Just to let you
It-
know.
You mean like the survey in particular to this survey?
Yes, that's on the next, you're welcome to continue, but I just wanted you to know that that's our next topic to talk about.
No, that's fine. You know, I just wanted to bring it up
I
because,
appreciate
you know, it will help us answer some of the questions, or at least a little bit, give them some hope. You know, because there's a lot of questions coming our way, and it's our job to make sure that we answer to the community. So,
I have some numbers if you are ready, but these ones are actually not breaking down by county, but in fiscal year 2020 to 2023, we received 7,299 hotline calls in our shelter. Same year, we provided 25,311 nights for women, for victims of domestic violence and their children. Same year, we have 43 youth and young adults that participated in the group that I related before, Marine Against Youth Abuse. We had 62 young men training healthy masculinity by the Champion Men's Zone. We assisted 464 individuals. In my department, that is the legal systems advocacy, we provided individuals with guidance through both civil and criminal justice systems. We also helped them with the effectiveness and the completion of the police report. We provided 165 sessions to 165 children and their not abuser parent were provided with individualized therapy. We conducted also 105 men receive classes in the Mankind program, so then they can learn how to stop their behavior, their abusive behavior. We reach out to 1,998 community members that were provided with education through all of the different events that we attended. And through, we also have 1,630 professionals and community members, youth service providers, and prevention specialists that they received training on domestic violence. And I'll be happy to send this worksheet to Scott so then he can pass it out to you all.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Do you have any more questions?
no, I'm good. No,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Mr. Davidi?
Yeah, I have a question to the detective. You mentioned something about the victims tend to get a pamphlet. Are these by any chance bilingual?
Yes, they're bilingual.
Okay, thank you. I have two more questions. Did you, maybe to you or Mrs. Alvarez, during COVID, did you see the numbers spike or stay steady? Any trend in during COVID times of how these domestic violence came through your offices?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have the COVID time statistics. I pulled the 2022 and 2023 statistics to share with you today.
Okay, and my final question is, I'm not sure if you touched on it. Do you have any stats on like demographics and neighborhood hotspots where domestic violence happens in San Rafael?
I don't have those right now. I just have the number of cases that we responded to.
Okay, thank you.
Member Locke? Questions?
Detective, you had mentioned the card that the police officers carry when they're called for domestic violence. My question is, you had mentioned taking photos and so forth. So do they also have cameras at that time? So they're taking photos there rather than later or some other time, or the center is taking photos?
Right, exactly. So all officers are issued department cell phones. And so with the cell phones, they take the photos of the scene and of the injuries and so forth.
Okay. And then if there are children present, I didn't hear what was done by the police officers if children are present right at the
Yes.
site of the case.
Yeah, really good question. So when children are present, they're in the room when, let's say it's their parents, when their parents are physically fighting. When we respond, we alert Child Protective Services that the children were witness to their parents physically fighting. And this is for the emotional abuse aspect of it. But of course, we also make sure through statements that the children weren't injured in any kind of way, because if they were, now we're looking at different crimes and different penal codes. So we make a report to Child and Family Services.
So if the offender is removed from the scene and the offended remains with the children, then you process. Otherwise, it's not like you take the offendee and leave the children. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, right. There has to be a protective parent or guardian there to watch the children,
Yeah.
of course. Yes.
And what was my other question? I think. Are these PowerPoints going to be available to us?
I'll be happy to send mine. Yes.
Yes, we'll provide both PowerPoints and provide them as a part of the follow-up report.
Oh, I do have one more question. Okay, one more question. You said long-term, for Luz, you mentioned that you would provide long-term housing, and then you said 12 months.
That was also
What is long-term?
So what I did is that the second step transitional housing program, it's a 12-month program. Within that program, we help victims to maintain and secure long-term housing elsewhere. So the program is 12 months.
Yeah.
And that's part of the occupational component of the program.
Okay, and my last question for you is, you mentioned different trainings for offenders, I'll say. Have you ever used the man-to-man services of Dr. Stuart Perilat?
I'm not sure about that, but I'll be happy to get back to you about that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Member Ruiz, do you have any questions?
Sí, yo quiero darle las gracias a las dos por la información tan importante. Yo no lo sabía. Es muy buena información para mí. Si alguien en la comunidad tiene alguna pregunta, yo puedo accederles la información de ustedes. Y sí, también me gustaría saber la demografía de cuáles son las razas que tienen más llamadas para esto de la violencia doméstica. Gracias.
Are we privy to that?
Just want to say thank you both for the information. I was not aware of some of this. This is definitely something that I will be able to communicate to the community members if anyone were to ask, or I can provide information. And another question that I would have is in regards to the demographics. I would be interested in knowing what is the race demographic involved in these domestic violence cases. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sorry, I don't have the demographic statistics with me today.
And I do not have demographics, and I am not sure if we will be able to provide you with demographics because of the confidentiality of the victims. But I'll be happy to check and get back to you.
I get to ask a question myself, which is, well, actually, I'll save it for a comment because it's not really a question. So now would be the time. Are there any other questions from? No. Okay. Now would be the time for any members of the public who wish to make a comment on this topic of domestic violence and the presentation. Okay, I see no one, so we'll close public comment.
Chair Kamina.
So, oh, I'm sorry. Who did, am I not seeing?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, after this, we could pause for toggling, but we can do the public comment and then toggle.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Is there someone in the, did you have a comment?
Yes.
Please come forward. I didn't see you there.
El abuso, yo creo que el abuso no solo viene desde los hogares también. Yo creo que el abuso. Do you have your translator? Because I would like him to translate very well.
Pablo, if you want to translate every 2-3 sentences, is that what you'd like, sir? Sir.
Yo creo que el tema del abuso es muy complejo. No solo viene desde dentro de los hogares también. Yo creo que el abuso también viene de otras partes. Una de las cosas que experimentamos como comunidad también, el abuso ha venido del sistema judicial.
If you pause, we can get the translation.
Yeah.
So the topic of abuse is a quite complex topic because this is something that not only derives from the home, but it does come from other places. And I think as we've all maybe had experimented with or had experience with, that this also comes from the judicial system.
Y una de las preguntas que yo le iba a preguntar a la señora de la agencia es de que ustedes han tenido estos casos también.
Claro que sí, claro que sí. Yo puedo,
¿Qué hacen al respecto también? Sería todo, gracias.
claro que sí, puedo contestarte, puedo decir de que el abuso, no, nadie nace siendo un abusador. Este es un comportamiento que se aprende. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that nobody is born being an abuser. This is a learned behavior.
Pablo, would you mind translating what his question to Luz was?
I'm sorry. Lo siento. I lost track of the question with the self-answering. My apologies. Caballero, si gustaría reafirmar su pregunta para por lo menos interpretarla.
Sí. Mi pregunta era para el departamento de la señorita que maneja el programa, es de que han tenido estos casos y ustedes qué han hecho para proteger a las víctimas de esta situación también.
Wow.
So the question that I had was for your department is that you have had many of these types of cases, and what have you done in this regard?
Claro, cuando víctimas nos dicen a nosotras que ellas han recibido un maltrato por las policías, por los oficiales, nosotros hablamos con ellos directamente también, o hay ocasiones también de que les damos recursos y ellas pueden tomar los pasos necesarios que ellos necesitan.
And when these victims say to us that there's been this type of abuse from the police, we speak directly to the officials or directly to them, or we are able to provide them with resources as well.
Thank you. Are there any other people from the public who wish to comment on this topic? Okay, seeing no one, will close public comment. Are there any staff responses to any community questions?
I think we
Lou's-
answered them.
I think
Yeah.
Lou's answered it, good. Okay, so now would be the time for any discussion from the committee. And as a reminder that we will be working on our report, so if you have any comments, it would be good to say so. So, Ms. Valdez, do you have any comments?
I have a comment about, sorry, I forgot the name. From for Domestic Peace. I had the opportunity to talk with a lady probably like a year and a half ago. And she said that they are really good at helping them, that she was in a really difficult relationship with her husband, and they were like really good at helping her and the kids like to move out of the house and found housing for them. So I think they are doing great work. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. We don't hear that frequently, so it's always to hear good news.
Ms. Alvarez, do you have any comments?
I want to say that I had no clue about Center of Domestic Peace, and it's incredible of what they are doing, helping many people.
Wonderful.
So that will also, now that I have the knowledge, I'll be able to help people who are in need. So
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Nguyen, do you have any comments? Okay, thank you. Mr. Takalai, Member Takalai.
Just a short one. The member from the public, he mentioned that this is a very complex topic, and yes, it is. It's San Rafael. It's a melting pot with, different folks from different communities and traditions and cultures. And it's a taboo, in my culture too, from South Pacific, like we don't talk about this. We don't report it, unless it's getting out of hand, like out of control, then, maybe a neighbor will call it in. But we keep it in the house. It's a lot of these are not reported. I salute you guys for doing the work you do. I know Center for Peace, for Domestic Peace, the work they do is tremendous, helping a lot of these, especially moms with kids, young girls, teens. I'm also worried about the folks who doesn't know about what they do. I think you guys are stepping in the right directions. I know you've been doing this for years, trying to educate the public about the work that you guys do. And I think it's also very important to encourage people to come forward, to reach out to these folks. They are professionals. They know what they do. So they help, they also they're affiliated with the local BD and other nonprofits who do work in the mental health sectors, and reach out to them, identifying these pillars in our communities that do the work that we don't know of, but that they're very important, especially when the communities ask us to pay more attention to it, then it's important to us to know and educate others about the work that these folks are doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeViti, any comments?
Yes. I want to thank both of you for being here. The work that you do not only changes lives, but also saves them. I must disclose, I grew up in a household that domestic violence as a kid was very common. And I've seen what the work can do tremendous work to stop generational trauma, because domestic violence, it happens repeatedly and it goes generations back. As being an immigrant in this country, I feel really grateful that these services exist. The country took a shift after the OJ trial, because that's when policing, the way they intervene to a domestic violence call, had a radical shift. I remember during the 80s, it was just a call. It wasn't taken seriously, but it took an unfortunate, tragic incident. And as a result, I think the policing has really changed around domestic violence. It's taken more seriously. Everything you mentioned, I think it's really a post-1990 model, and I'm glad that it's gone that direction. So again, thank you for that. I also want to share that my wife used to work for your agency, used to be called Marine Abuse Prevention
Women
Center.
Services,
Yeah.
yes.
Does Donna still work there, the previous director?
Just
He
retired.
just retired.
All right, well, my wife used to work for you guys, so. All
Okay,
right, thank you, and I'll end with that.
you're welcome. Maybe I know your wife.
Her name is Aliza Nasler?
Yes, I do. I
Okay.
do. I know Alisa. Please
Okay.
say hi to her, please.
I will, thank you.
Member Locks, I apologize. I was supposed to toggle interpreters if you give me 2 seconds.
I can stand up. I was
Feel free.
by your car.
You sore?
Yeah, I have to stand up periodically.
Yeah. She got hit by a car.
Okay, thank you, Member Locks.
Thank you, both presenters. I appreciate that our primary focus is how policing interacts with in these situations. And I appreciate knowing that there's more sensitivity, as you described, for victims, because oftentimes people do not come forward because of
Member Locks, I'm sorry, could you bring the mic a little bit closer and just slow down just a little bit?
Yes, I have to do my magic. Yeah, you have to do my magic. Ta-da! Because it doesn't move. I'm sorry. Okay, better.
1 second, Pablo, can you start talking in the Spanish channel? Darlene, you could tell me if you hear
Yeah.
him. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
As I was saying, I thank both of the presenters. However, our primary focus has been as to how police interact with domestic violence situations. And to hear that it's more of the victim focus, I really appreciate hearing that and the sensitivity. I'm hoping that our San Rafael police officers are at the top of the game rather than how the game used to be, because oftentimes people don't come forward because it can be very humiliating as to the kinds of questions and the approach and, well, how come you dressed like that? You know what I'm saying? Okay. So I appreciate that what you had said about the victim focus, that sensitivity. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I appreciate this Center for Domestic Peace as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Locks. Member Ruiz, do you have any comments, please?
Ya, otra vez, muchas gracias, Marina, ¿verdad? ¿Es su nombre, Marina? Lorena, perdón. Y Luz Alvarado, muchas gracias porque me han contestado en español. Eso quiere decir que hay latinos trabajando para nosotros los latinos. Gracias por ese apoyo tan grande. Y volviendo a un comentario que hizo mi compañera Carla, es de que opino que pueden hacer ustedes como una encuesta después de cada situación familiar para ver cómo quedaron de contentos las víctimas, cómo estuvo la solución que le dieron ustedes a toda la problemática. Entonces, un feedback vendría bien para, pues, o preguntas como qué les faltó hacer, cómo se sintieron. Y yo pienso que eso sería bueno para ustedes porque hay muy buenos comentarios sobre ustedes siempre. Gracias.
Do we get to find out what was said? Thank you.
Gracias.
Angelica, did you get that? Can you translate that for us?
Yes. Well, I just want to thank everybody, and I appreciate that you are responding in Spanish as well. That means that they're Latin people working, and I just want to say that this has been a huge support But I have one comment. I don't know if like if a questionnaire could be done just to know how the victims are doing and how we are solving their situation. So I feel that some feedback could be beneficial for the institutions.
Thank you. As for me, my comment is, first of all, thank you both very much for your presentation. And I, as you know, was involved in the district attorney's office for many, many years. And when I started in 1982 and was the domestic violence deputy, it used to be that the police would tell the victim to go stay in a hotel rather than arresting the whoever was the dominant aggressor. And I'm very pleased to see the progress that has been made, and would say that I don't know if we were one of the first, but we were fortunate enough to have great leadership in the Center for Domestic Peace, which was Marin Abused Women's Services, known nationally and highly regarded for their work. We also developed a protocol for every police department has the same response, and I'm hopefully that it's still in action, though I've been retired. So thank you for your presentation very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I know I'm out of order, but I have one question I think is important. If I could ask the detective.
I think public comment is closed, but if you,
Right.
1 minute.
Very quick, it's just, we talked about.
Mr. Bingham, I think we gotta make sure the microphone is on.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it on?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's just about U visas and
Towards your mouth.
U visas and T visas, which were talked about in the presentation. And I wonder, because a lot of immigrants don't know about them. Do the police officers mention those to people to encourage them to go to the center? Because otherwise they might not go. That's just my question.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that is mentioned by the law enforcement, but every time that we are assisting a victim that is from a foreign country, that is something that we notify them and we tell them and we give them the education just so then they know exactly what services are available to them.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from staff?
What- I think Detective Vega just wanted to respond to this
I'm
question.
sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't see them. Please.
The only thing I was gonna add, so when a domestic violence incident occurs, the perpetrator is arrested, and afterwards, the victim works with our district attorney's office with the victim witness advocates. And they also, just like Center for Domestic Peace, they help them through the court processes afterwards. And one of the things they also educate them on is the U visas and the T visas.
You know, and one of the things that we haven't talked about, which is a whole different conversation, is the cycle of violence and how it is that people end up not reporting or reporting. So maybe we might save that for another day, but again, thank you so much for your presentation. Does any comments?
I have no comments. I'll defer to Lieutenant Eberly if he has any additional comments to close us out.
Yeah, just to close it out, it is written in our practices that every domestic violence case where there is a victim, that we do notify Center for Domestic Peace. I can't talk, excuse me. And they contact every one of the victims. So your U visa question is hopefully answered satisfactorily. Other than that, that is all I have for this topic.
Thank you. Do you know, I made a mistake. Apparently we're not discussing the questionnaire. I don't see that on the next spot. Is that mine?
It's on the agenda.
Oh, it is.
It's
I
on the
missed-
agenda, but it may not have made it to the.
I know, I see
the
it. It's
cheat sheet,
My
yeah.
the cheat sheet. Thank you. So we'll close this topic on domestic violence, and thank you so much, both of you again, for your wonderful presentation. And the next topic is indeed the 2023 Community Survey data.
And so I'm going to call up to the other microphone, my colleague Walter Gonzalez, management analyst in the city manager's office, who prepared the report and who was also involved in the community engagement related to
Great.
the questionnaire, as well as the formation of the Police Advisory and Accountability Committee. So I know that Detective Alvarez is excuse me, Detective Vega is packing up. So just want to give her a moment before Walter proceeds
you.
with his brief presentation, and then the committee and the public can ask away.
Thank you so much.
Will you get one more card? One more card? Well, I'll write the name from that. Okay, I'll take it from his card. Let's see. Thank you. Thank you.
And so with that, Walter, whenever you're ready to proceed,
Please,
you're
thank
welcome
you.
to start.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Walter Gonzalez, and I work at the city manager's office as a management analyst. And I just wanted to take some brief time to just go over the report with you, all that was added on your packet about our community survey. I'll start off with a little bit of background information. From October 22 to March 23, 2023, the city, in collaboration with the police department, hosted several community meetings around San Rafael to try to to talk about what policing in San Rafael looks like for our community members. And out of these meetings, we had 5 key themes that were identified that the police department would address, and that would be building community trust, enhancing transparency and accountability, diversifying the police force, improving cultural competence and empathy, and increasing police visibility. And part of the building community trust and enhancing transparency and accountability led to the creation of the PAC.
Walter, I'm sorry, one quick second.
He said you speak so fast.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I'll slow down. So yes, part of the building community trust and enhancing the transparency led to the creation of the PAC. And to support the creation of the PAC, staff created this community survey that took place that was shared with the community from July to September of 2023. In addition to the survey being shared via social media and all these virtual formats, we also, in collaboration with the elected officials or city council, hosted 4 community meetings at the respective districts. And at these events, the community had the opportunity to go and engage with their elected official and also the staff in regards to policing in San Rafael. And this was basically it was the survey that we provided to community members virtually, but also just in another format. In addition, we also worked with Voces del Canal, which is a neighborhood group in the Canal, to survey Canal residents in Spanish. And out of this survey, we had around 300 survey responses, and only those that live or worked in San Rafael were eligible to take the survey. So it was people that are part of our community in that sense. And as you can see, there was a bunch of priorities that came out of the survey, but ones that I wanted to highlight was, as mentioned earlier today, is that traffic and speeding was the biggest, one of the biggest issues. We also had a desire to look into enhancing community safety, addressing mental health concerns and substance abuse, ensuring women's safety, combating elder abuse, teen safety and driving, and also starting neighborhood watch groups. But as you can see in the report, there's so many more. But yeah, that's it for my presentation. If you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. I appreciate that very much. Are there any questions from the committee? I'll start with Ms. Valdez. Member Valdez?
Questions,
No
thank you.
questions? Ms. Alvarez, any questions about this? Ms. Lynn, any questions?
No question.
No question? Member Takalai, do you have questions?
I guess my question is just a repeat of the earlier questions. Like, do you guys have a follow-up? Are you going to do a follow-up survey?
At the moment, we don't have a planned follow-up survey.
Okay.
Well, that would be a good recommendation.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I love numbers. It's real. Numbers are real. And to me, like, real facts, the concerns from the community are based on those You know, if we can provide those to the communities, it will show them that we are actually doing something,
Yes.
you know? And that's the only reason why, like, the more work that we do, like surveys, like outreach and reach out to like recorded numbers and stuff. I'm so glad to hear that, you know, DV's decreasing, you know, which shows the work that local BD and Center for Domestic Peace are doing. They're working together. I'm sure if we show these numbers from other agencies that work together with the local BD on other issues or other methods that shows on this graph, on this list, just to show the numbers, you know,
That would be great.
because a lot of people, they might not, they don't want everyone to explain everything, but if they see the numbers, if the problems are decreasing and the solution are increasing, that's a good sign, you know? But if they don't see numbers, of course they will ask questions. That's the only, I don't know, feedback, recommendations I could give, but
Okay, I appreciate it.
thank you though.
Thank you. Member Davidi, any questions at this time?
No, thank you.
Member Locks, any questions? And then we'll have time for comment after the questions.
Questions. Okay, well, I don't know how this falls into questions or comments. Maybe it's. Okay, I'll make it comments because I have specific things that I want
Okay.
to say.
Okay, we'll come back to you then. Thank
Okay.
you. No, I know it gets confusing.
No, no
No
question.
questions? Okay, now would be the time if any members of the public want to make a comment on the presentation.
So there was a survey made. That's what I heard from you. What's the purpose of the survey? Is this for institutional data or this is to approach the problem that we facing in our community?
The survey was to help the PAC establish what they should look at as part of the PAC.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak? No. Okay, we'll close public comment. And well, the question was answered. Thank you. So now would be the time for any comments from the committee. And I know Member Locks has one, so we'll start with her.
I would say several. First
Okay.
of all, I'd like to share, one of my first statistics classes was how to lie with statistics. And since Marilyn and I are at the opposite ends of the continuum of life, I felt this was kind of like, the report was, for me as a researcher, was kind of dumbing down, really, what are you trying to say? By that I mean, I don't feel that the numbers are being able to be generalized to all of San Rafael. I felt the bulk of the respondents were encouraged by an NGO, non-governmental organization, which was the Voices, I don't know how to say it, the Voices, which is a subset of the Canal Alliance, which the people that I talk to say the Canal Alliance do not represent us. So the generalization of these numbers seem to be predominantly from one area, possibly from one selected group of speakers. I'm not sure. I don't know them. The methodology is not presented. And so it's like, it says it was provided in 4 of the areas of San Rafael. However, the numbers aren't broken down according to those 4 areas of San Rafael. That's when I say, how can we generalize these responses as San Rafael responses when the numbers don't reflect that it was from a broad perspective of San Rafael, where it seems to be a focused, maybe limited area of San Rafael and questionable who the respondents are. From a survey research perspective, I have concerns about this report.
Thank you. that could be taken into consideration. Maybe if we do another one, it'd be great. Member Reeves, any questions?
Any question,
Scott,
thank you.
comments? No?
No
Okay,
comment.
thank you. Ms. Valdez, do you have any comments to make?
Yes, I have a comment about what she was saying. For example, I know that Voces de Canal was part of this, but they don't just serve one population because, for example, I volunteer one of the food distributions like every Wednesday, and they were there where we have like Asian people, we have white people, Latinos, we also have for example, people that just came to the country. So I think it was like focused not just in one area, but different areas. Yeah, that's my comment about, yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Alvarez, do you have any comments about the presentation?
I would have to agree with member
Ruiz?
No,
Oh, Locks, okay, thank you.
It would be nice to know which districts have their concerns and to know so that they're the district that the person's in charge of can learn and see what their district needs, because each district is different. So it'd be nice to know what each want change for. So
Thank you. Ms. Nguyen, do you have any comments about the report or the presentation, I should say?
Well, I just have a comment like, when we have a domestic violence and like, offense the people who do the violence. What should we do with them? We educate them, we make the restraining orders, to some case, but how about is, what will resolve the problem actually? So we don't jail them, right? We just make the restraining orders, then we put them in this something like class for education them for not violate domestic violence or.
I think, Ms. Ruiz, that was the unfortunate, Ruiz, Ms. Nguyen, that was the topic for the officer who already left.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure we could talk about it, but this is
Okay.
probably not a question. Walter's a
Right.
statistic person, not a domestic violence person.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, that's
okay.
yeah. So-
Hey, Mr. Chocolate, please. Did I cover everybody? How about you?
No, thank you.
No, okay. Thank you very much. I think we have,
Well, just one,
please.
I think your question is very valuable. If you want to send me that question about domestic violence, I will definitely get that answered. And when we follow up next meeting, we can follow up and answer that for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Of course. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
It's about Voces del Canal. I think reality is that the city has to understand really deeply this comment that I'm gonna make, because those Voces del Canal are they were formed by Canal Alliance,
Right.
and is there like this is a deeper.
So, sir, I think if you're going to make a comment about Voices del Canal, I don't think this is the appropriate forum. This is the survey that we established to make the PAC.
But
an
it's
open comment
related. I
is
think
done.
I think the survey it's due to this conversation. I think it's related to this. Otherwise, I wouldn't make any conversation if that was related to this,
Sir.
topic.
We opened and we closed the public comment.
Okay,
So if
that's
you wanna
fine.
if you want to have one more comment, please, but it
Yes.
should be directed toward the report.
Okay, that's. I think there's a lot of more groups of leaders in the canal, like the churches. You have to take that in consideration. There are large groups that they haven't really approached, and I think that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So at this point, there's no, is there any staff comment?
Having difficulty with my microphone. So one of the things that we could do for the follow-up, and Lieutenant Eberly did indicate that we do have this information by council district. I do want to reiterate that it wasn't done in just one geographic area of the city. It was done in all 4 council districts. The comments notwithstanding about
Sure.
who conducted the survey, but it was done in all council districts, and we can provide that data broken down that way.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
And one last thing, we'll provide follow-up, but I could say that I was there at majority of the surveys and Voices de Canal was not at any of the surveys where I was present. And I was present at the one in Pickleweed and the one here at City Council. And I know about the one that was also in the Peacock Gap area as well. So.
Thank you.
I'd also like to make one comment about the Voces del Canal work. We actually decided to go with Voces del Canal, and because we were struggling to get survey responses from the canal, so we put in some more effort on that, and that's why we were able to get them to help us. And we also didn't just tell them get us surveys. We did provide them with some idea of like we'd like to get surveys from this type of population, elderly and so forth. So I can look to see if I have the responses broken down like that. But we didn't just ask them to do them. We did provide some direction on how we'd like to get the responses back, so we don't have these issues.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. So this topic we're finished, and now we move on to this staff liaison reports. Are there any other updates?
Just a quick update on your response or your comment from last time about complaints. We do plan on presenting those at a quarterly basis. So I think our first one is going to be in October. You'll be able to see more of a trend rather than a monthly, and we'll have a presentation about the complaints that get taken in.
That would be great. Thank you very much. Anything else? No?
I have no reports.
Okay. So now would be the time for committee reports. So I'll start with Ms. Valdez. Do you have anything? And since we're short on time, if we could be brief tonight, it would be great. But please.
Yeah, on June 12th, I attended an officer oral board interview.
Oh.
We interviewed seven candidates. Yeah. It was a great experience as a member of the PAC to help select what officers are hired to serve our community. Also on July 13th, I attended the Canal Community Fair. I talked with some community members about the PAC and the experiences with the San Rafael's Police Department. And I was also invited by Marina Palma, who is part of a group called Líderes de la Unión de Inquilinos del 400, to a community meeting on July 25th at Pickleweed Park, where we have a conversation with community members about their concerns and also learn how to hold cultural events like the independence celebrations in a safety way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Alvarez, do you have anything you'd like to report on?
No, I've been busy with school.
Well, of course, you're not required. It's okay. Ms. Nguyen, do you have anything you'd like to report on?
I just talk about the parks in my communities.
Oh.
Just let they know that what we have. So
Thank you.
that's it.
Mr. Takalai, Member Takalai? You're done? No comment? Wow. Sorry. Member Davidi?
Yes, I took my family to the Marin County Fair, which was the record hottest day, I think, in San Rafael. I got to see the San Rafael Police Department with their booth over there. I got to interact with some officers and introduce my son. They were pretty warm and welcoming and educating the public, and they got to go on there was a motorcycle there. There was a police car there. So just want to thank for having, it's nice that the community gets to interact with police and on a, positive and community way. I get to speak to a few officers and yeah, it was a nice experience. So thanks for being at that event. I didn't see you there.
Well, I like to say that
Relax.
I didn't get to go to the fair to interact with our fellow police officers, San Rafael police officers, and I work with the San Rafael Fire Department as well. And my focus is older adults and safety. On June 26th, I attended the California Commission on Aging's 50th year celebration of working on behalf of older adults. and that was in Sacramento. So I want to bring to your attention a statistic that isn't actually increasing, and that is pedestrians being hit by cars. I was in a crosswalk on a green light and I was hit by a car. So older adults, young adults, mothers pushing strollers, people are not being careful while driving. They are being distracted by either the whatever you want to call it on the dashboard or their cell phones and so forth. We have to be hyper alert about drivers, and us as drivers, put the damn phone down. Stop it. People are getting injured. That's what I wanted to share.
Well, I'm very sorry for your experience, and that's great advice, though. Thank you. Member Ruiz, do you have any report that you'd like to make?
Sí, well, I try to speak English for more fast.
Sure.
And, well.
Please
I
speak,
wasn't-
do whatever is most comfortable for you. Please.
It's okay. I was in the same fair with Carla. I talked with many police. They was visiting the fair. We was talking people and police about the cameras. These cameras identify the plate for the cars. Is very important. It was so good for me being there. And the other, I would like to tell guys, we have a Boy Scout program every Mondays, but almost gone because the person was 25 years working, he retired. And was so bad for our children because they don't like to be in other troops. And we are only 7 parents and 5 or I am the president right now. My husband is secretary, and the other, we have a different positions because we don't like to lose this program because in Canal it's so hard to have programs after the school. And maybe next year we are going to have 2 Eagles. We are so happy and we are working in more children's, and we would like to invite police to visit us. If you like to come, we are every Mondays 7 to 9 in Pickleville Park. Please come and enjoy, and maybe you have a question for our children's. It's good to see you and the police too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I ask you for a favor? Can you send us an email, like just everything you said, like the word salad and all that stuff? Do you mind?
Yeah, sure.
If
sure.
you know, if you feel comfortable.
I will.
Okay,
I
thanks.
promise.
You have to send it to Lieutenant Everly, right? And then
I'm
he'll
going to
send.
to him. Yeah, I will. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
Okay,
the question.
thank you. I actually don't have much to report other than I had a person contact me as a member of the PAC about something that seemed to be more of a police investigation. And I referred that person to Lieutenant Everly, who promptly responded to the person. And I got a wonderful email today that she was very grateful to you and that you assigned someone. And I'm very grateful. Thank you. Good job. So I think that's the end of the committee reports. So our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Madam Chair, before we adjourn, I would like to know, I would like to know what our topic is going to be for next month. since
Use
we
of
don't
force.
have it listed.
Use of force.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now we're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Everly.